So Donald Stojack does talk to some very interesting people. And today I want to talk with my friend Richard. I've known Richard for a few years, but I'll let Richard say a little bit more about himself. So who is Richard?
Thanks, Donald. Richard is a semi-retired architect. I've been doing this for 44 years, and I've done all kinds of different things in that time. But maybe some of the notable things I've had to do that have to do with business is using a collaborative creative process that brings everybody into the design and creation process.
Cool.
So so I've done work with Native American tribes and large corporations and all kinds of people where I need to get everybody on board.
Mm-hmm. And you and I have talked back and forth on a number of deep topics, and I always appreciate your insight. I mean, the wall of books you've got there speaks for itself. I don't think you just have those there for decoration. I know, right. I know you've read them and reread them, and we've had some deep discussions on this stuff. But we kind of together, you and I ran across a topic that I think would be of interest to some people. And the big thing is what was our premise? That you don't know what you don't know, or thinking, or you don't know what you don't think you know, or how would you frame it? What do we run into?
Well, we're going to talk about something that's called the knowledge illusion, and what that an illusion is something that it looks like one thing, but it's another thing.
Mm-hmm.
The illusion is that you think you know as much as you do.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk through that, but what we're talking about is how the brain operates actually and normally when we're just on default mode.
Okay. And I know going in and working with business leaders and stuff like you have as well, the biggest step towards progress is admitting you got the problem. It's like the
self-awareness.
Yeah. Right? Step one, I am an alcoholic. We say in business, step one to increasing your momentum in business and getting there is saying, hey, I don't know everything. I need some help. So I think this is just validation of that, and maybe a little bit more insight. And so you've put together a pretty cohesive PowerPoint on this. So let's jump into this. And as we're going through this, just let everybody know at the end. I mean, we'll give you a way that you can say maybe even get a PDF copy of these slides or something like that, or some
we can do a PDF, sure.
Yeah, engage with us further. So let's rock and roll with this.
All right, let's do a screen share. So how's that look at your end?
Good. And I love the title, is knowledge and illusion. Where are we at?
Yeah. Well, an illusion is something that you wrongly perceive. It looks one way, but it's really a different way. It looks like an A, but really it's a B. I think there's one of my favorite illusions is something that looks like a rabbit when you look at it. Mm-hmm. If you stop and look at it for a while, it's actually a duck, Or I think I love MC Escher, and one of my favorite MC Escher drawings is where the stairs look like they're going up and up and up and up and never come back down.
Right. Oh, and I love your little drawings there. So these are your original artistic endeavors, correct?
I think they are. I guess I have to take credit for them, don't I?
Yep.
So the knowledge illusion is to believe we possess as much knowledge as we really think we do, or that what we do possess is altogether true and reliable. And there's more to the illusion. There's so much going on around us. There's so much more going on that we're really aware of. It's an illusion that we retain a lot of information and thinking that we have the whole data set that's available to us. So the illusion is we really think we know as much as we really need to know to operate in a certain situation. I mean, have you ever experienced being blindsided by something, Donald, where?
Oh God, yes. Being in business for a few decades, yeah. and you think you got everything down, and then something presents itself and you thought, where was this 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
Well, one of my favorites is have you ever been to I went to a board meeting once where I completely prepared with the person what was going to happen, what was going to say. And when we showed up at the board meeting, she just absolutely blindsided me with stuff we had never talked about. And I did not know what was going on. You get caught kind of with your pants down and what the heck you're going to say next. But I've got another more serious situation. I lost a job about 10 years ago because of all the machination that was going on behind the scenes.
Uh-huh.
I traveled a lot and I had a staff that was supposed to get their stuff done, and how they were getting stuff done wasn't wasn't according to Hoyle, and I got surprised with the nice to see you, and we'll, see you later kind of a
Mhm.
notice.
So the problem that you think it is might not be the problem that it actually is, or you might think you have it all under control and it's really falling apart, or the converse is true. You might think it's falling apart, but in reality, there's some fine threads that are really very powerfully holding it together.
Yeah, there's just all kinds of ways we don't see things, but we're
Mhm.
pretty sure we've got it under control. And so these unknowns can present real problems. So part of the knowledge illusion is, again, thinking we've got it all under control, thinking we have enough information to operate and function, but we don't actually.
And why is that?
Well, you could look at it two ways. Either the brain is lazy, or what I'm going to present is the brain is economical. The brain
Mm,
uses 20% of the body's energy, but it's only 2% of the body's mass.
okay.
So what it tries to do all the time is save energy. There's a book that's pretty popular right now, and it's come out, I don't know, several years ago. Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. I think he received a Nobel Prize or something for the book. He shows that the brain in default mode is always thinking fast. And what that means is it's taking shortcuts. It uses heuristics, rules of thumb. If something feels good, it's good enough. It uses as little energy as possible, because to think slow or to think hard and deep really uses a lot of energy.
Okay.
So it takes shortcuts. And the result is our capacity to absorb and retain information is quite limited, but we're not aware of that. So that's the illusion part. I think most people are aware of how much work it takes to really slow down and think.
Well, it's interesting too, I'll pay a lot of money to go to some big in-depth seminar, right? And I'll spend the weekend there, a couple, 3 days, or sometimes a week type of thing. Take a ton of notes, spend a lot of money and time to get there, the hotel, the plane ticket,
Yeah.
the everything, and walking away and thinking, okay, now what?
Well, yeah, and yes, similar to all, I have read every one of those books. I used to outline each one so I could try to remember them, but
Mhm.
it's it's impossible. And we'll talk about what the brain really does.
Okay.
So as a result, we skim the surface and absorb just enough information to feel good about it. We're kind of emotionally run creatures. But once we feel good about something, we think we've got it mastered. Now we're overconfident. I mean, it's the same thing we had a discussion a little bit a minute ago. Haven't you marched into a conversation, spouting an opinion,
Mhm.
or broadcasting everything only to have someone call you on it, and
Mhm.
you're just so confident you have it right. I have a
Mhm.
friend that has written something like 20 books, and we like to get together and, no surprise, talk about books. And
Right.
invariably, I bring in a new one with a new idea, and I'm all excited about some philosophical point. And Eldon stops and says, "No, wait a minute. What about this other book that is about 90 degrees off of what
Mhm.
you haven't quite got it down." So anyway, the result is the fact that we kind of just brush over things quickly is we make shallow decisions. Humans are pretty bad at statistics and chance. Even people trained in statistics can make big mistakes. Well, an example is medical decisions. If I tell you that I'm going to administer a procedure to you that has a 90% success rate, how are you going to feel about that? But if I tell you I'm going to administer a procedure to you that has a 10% failure rate, how are you going to feel about that? But it's the same statistics.
Right.
We jump to that quick, and we make, poor economic decisions based on our kind of not digging. How many people like myself have not saved for decades, understanding the power of compound interest?
Well, and so leading a business too, it is about making decisions, making a lot of decisions. Some are right, some are wrong, but we got it. We the goal here is probably to make more right decisions than wrong decisions, but it's also those very, very crucial decisions, right?
Yeah, they are. And again, the theme is we get enough information to feel pretty good about it.
Mhm.
So, and we do things like not consulting with others to see if we might be missing something. I like the word credulous. It's someone who believes things very quickly and easily without double checking to see if it's the truth.
Okay.
I won't talk about today's politics, but I think there's a lot of believing things that haven't been checked out. Anyway,
Okay.
so these are costly mistakes
Yeah.
and lost opportunities. Of course, opportunity cost is a big thing in life and in business.
So a lot of pain here. Okay. And I think I am saying, I'm saying myself in the mirror. How do we start to turn this around? What is the answer? What do we do now that we know? Now that we know this, we don't know this, but we do know this because you've told us this, right? Now what do we do?
Well, it's not dour. The important thing to know, I'm not suggesting that we, go to a retreat and learn how to think better and how to remember everything, because that's just not going to happen. The good news is that storing details is unnecessary. We don't need to know everything. A broad picture is plenty enough to do the job. We need to know enough to know where to turn. I've been an architect for 44 years now. To become an architect, it's 5 years of school, 5 years of internship, and a 44-hour licensing exam. That's 4 days of 8 hours and a final day of 12 hours in the licensing exam. 44 years later, how much of that do you think I remember? Or 10 years later, or 2 years afterwards. But the reason for going through that exercise is I know enough to know where to turn. I know all the high points. I know the low points. Something comes up, I remember it. I remember that I got to go there. So storing detailed information happens outside of your head. You don't need to pack it all, and you can't pack it all in forever.
It's interesting. I was talking with a CEO of a large corporation out of one of the eastern states the other day, and he's going after a whole new vertical. And so he spent the last number of months deep diving on a very crucial software piece. Okay. And in moments, I said to him, I says, okay, you spent how long and you've grown these companies into the tens, if not hundreds of millions. What's the value of your time? And he said, you didn't think to get a consultant that already knew that stuff to tell you exactly what you needed to know. Right.
Yeah. So the answer isn't to, become better at thinking. The answer is to be humble about what you know.
Okay.
I mean, there's a great book by Adam Grant called Think Again. And the subtitle of the book is The Power of Knowing What You Don't Know. It's just a wonderful book about how to think in real life and, how to kind of double check yourself.
Okay.
Look to others. I just read something that something like 90% of new ideas or innovative ideas come through conversations with other people. Again, there's a book called The Necessity of Strangers by Alan Gregerman that talks about the power of weak links. Not just your people close to you, but all the casual relationships you have. It's like remembering the architecture stuff. If you're in your life and you remember, hey, Joe, I remember this Joe that I met once, and he said he's good at whatever. You don't need to be intimate friends with Joe, but just knowing that there's a Joe out there who's kind of in that category that you can pick up the phone and talk to.
Okay. And so drinking your own Kool-Aid here, right? And so rather than trying to inflesh and even totally understand everything you're saying, okay, the business mind, okay, now what do I do? How do I leverage this? Now that I know this, okay, now that I've admitted I got a problem, what do I do?
Well, what you do is, we know that facts are limited, but we're not just limited in facts. That's not the only knowledge illusion, but also in thinking, actually thinking together. The humans of the past hunted huge animals by working together. In fact, the evolutionary, theorists say the reason for our big brains, the reason our big brains even exist is because we spent so many millennia working together as a group. We're kind of skinny, hairless, toothless little creatures that don't have much power out in the wild world. But what we have is the ability to work together and think together. This is a little picture of guys hunting a beast. We maximize our intelligence by thinking in harmony with others and collaboration. I mean, I can give you some great examples. McCartney and Lennon, the Beatles wouldn't have happened without that collaboration. I don't know how many people know Spielberg, but he has John Williams, who's written all his scores to all his movies, incredible collaboration. Elton John has Bernie Taupin. We talk about Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, but what they don't talk about is he didn't write that book alone. He wrote it with Amos Tversky. And the reason that guy's not mentioned anymore, he's passed, but they even wrote a book about how they wrote the book because their relationship was so intense for so many years figuring these things out. So with every yin, there's got to be a yang. With every yin, there's a yang, or at least there's cooperation going on.
Okay.
So the mind belongs to the community, not just to individuals. We need to recognize how connected we are. The question I want to ask today in the slideshow is, who are your communities?
Mm.
And have you purposefully designed your communities, or is it sort of willy-nilly accidental? Knowing how powerful this is, what are we doing to really maximize this intelligence that we have?
Tell me more.
Well, individual performance is an illusion. My kids have been in basketball since preschool and through high school, and not in college, but I'm a great basketball fan in college. And in all those years that I've been involved, there's one message that has been hammered over and over and over and over, which is don't hog the ball, share the floor, share the floor. I mean, even in professional or college basketball, there's always a star of some sort that you have to have somebody who's really great on the team, but that person cannot perform without the team effort. I'm a big fan of Gonzaga basketball, and they're famous for really sharing the ball in a way that's really entertaining to watch. They're so good at it, So individual performance is an illusion, even if you have a superstar around. So intelligence of the group is what matters most.
Even the energy, I'm thinking even true with that is the energy of the group. My son is on the swim team, and his best time does not come when he's in the pool alone.
Right.
And his best time doesn't even come at the practice. His best time comes at the swimming meet when that room is full of energy.
Right.
And he's swimming against somebody on another team.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. The energy of the group. I just solved a really tough problem as an architect. We're working on a 100-year-old mansion here in town, and the stairway is just awful. It's narrow and creaky and winding, and you just can't hardly get trying to get something upstairs like a dresser or mattress is impossible. So we've been working for literally a month trying to figure out what to do about it. But recently I ended up there with the structural engineer, the owner, myself, and the contractor, and we noodled over that thing for a couple hours, walking around, scratching our head, sharing ideas. We got close, but it's one of these things where I sat up at 3 a.m. and went, oh God, I know the answer. But it wasn't me. That moment would have happened without that 2 or 3 hours of sharing ideas and thinking it through together.
Okay, so we're leading a business. We're the CEO. We're the owner, founder of a company. It falls on our shoulders. Okay, what do we do?
Perfect question. What's the number one skill of a leader? The most important skill of a leader is the ability to foster high functioning groups. Yeah. We mostly work in groups, and so it's the group's ability to accomplish a task that is important. Again, relying on my personal experience, there isn't a building built in the United States without a team of highly skilled people that get along together, know how to talk, know how to work through the problems. Basically, an architect is like a quarterback of all the engineers. He's do this, think of that, go there, but it's absolutely a functioning group. And the basketball analogy comes up again. So what do you do? And there's the question, how do you do that?
Okay. How do you do that?
Well, the typical measure of group performance, people talk about things like cohesion, motivation, and group satisfaction, but those things don't predict how well a group works. Instead of staffing on analytical and technical, or solely on analytical and technical skills, what really works in a group are the social sensitivity of the group, how well they take turns, and not surprising to me, how many women are in the group. In other words, the emotional intelligence of the group is what makes a group function well. And I think everybody's familiar with Daniel Goleman's book written 10 years ago or so called Emotional Intelligence. Measuring or hiring for that is terribly important. And the last thing, which is kind of, fond to me or part of my bailiwick, is equipping the group with tools. In major business today, there's a trend called design thinking. I don't know if small business knows about it, but major businesses are teaching their people to think like designers, to find shared purposes, to define performance measures, to think in the terms of ideal targets before you think of reality. In other words, designers have been doing this for decades or longer, but in business school, of course, you're taught analytical skills, and you cannot analyze the solution to a problem. You have to have a whole different way of thinking. So the groups you work with have to be equipped with some tools as well.
Well, it's interesting, the phrase that Peter Drucker used years ago, and has been construed many ways, culture trumps strategy. In other words, you're basically saying that the group think, the group culture transcends everything, and that should be like ground zero.
Right, culture. That's right. That's a very popular term today.
Yeah.
And the culture, yeah, the culture is the ways of doing things rather than just the technical aspect of what you do.
Okay. So you go in and work with a business, as you have, as I have. What do we do?
Well, the first thing to consider is abandoning the idea of the independent powerhouse leadership. You know, in today's leadership, you know, the crack the whip style of management is being really questioned today. People like Jack Welch are not altogether so popular anymore, or Bear Bryant, who had championship teams, but basically worked his teams to death. Bobby Knight, who was intimidating, and Steve Jobs, who was mercurial and had tantrums. The research,
so
that stuff doesn't work.
The flash in the pan success did not equal sustainability.
Well, that's it. It's flash in the pan and it's temporary. It's not sustainable.
It doesn't give you what you really want.
Yeah, some of the people leading the charge today are like the military. You know, in the old days, the SEALs would just throw these kids into, and I say kids, I don't know if I should say they're kids, but throw them into the most difficult situation possible just to see who's going to get out and who's going to stay in. They don't do that anymore. They first train them how to think in difficult situations. They train them what they're going to experience. They teach them what they need to do to handle the difficult situation. Then they do the difficult situation. Military is actually getting very sophisticated in performance psychology.
Interesting.
So what you need to do, or what you should think of doing as a business people, is develop strategic, casual relationships with fellow thinkers. Dr. Henry Cloud talks about the power of the other, and he researched how casual networks enhance your performance. Alan Gregerman in The Necessity of Strangers talks about the importance of serendipity and just finding other people. Hermione Ybarra talks about act like a leader, get out of your office and get around to meet other people. So the leader, you've got these circles here, you know, Venn diagram here and some other circles. Develop strategic relationships. And something else to think about. Participate in masterminds and coaching. It's very beneficial, besides just developing your groups and your relationships, to have somebody sort of, you know, it's that thing we began at the beginning of the presentation, have somebody sort of tell you what you're doing, have somebody observe you from the outside and sort of check out who you are and what you are and give you some feedback.
And the research plays this out over and over and over and over again, doesn't it?
It does. I read a Harvard Review article that said something like 60% of CEOs would accept coaching if it was offered to them. So it's not a new idea, and it's not a difficult idea to promote.
Massively.
So the last issue is, why is this important? Because these are things that secure your future. You know, nothing is more important than securing your future and protecting your business from threat and being blindsided. To create a stronger, healthier organization and enable your group to be creative and lead the pack in your field. And maybe just simply to be able to sleep at night.
Yeah.
To know that you've given it your all, and it's not all in your hands when things are working.
Yep, been there, done that. I tell you, decades of being in business, guiding people in their businesses, being coached by some masters and coaching other people to become masters. It's, at the end of the day, it's being able to shut it off and go to sleep.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, cool. So, getting it done. How do we connect with Richard?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. I have a website, richardkielbonstudio.pro.
Okay.
I think even on that website, it says, find me on LinkedIn. All you need is my name. And I'd love to have a conversation, love to be part of your success in the future, love to be part of moving things forward for you.
And I can verify a conversation with Richard is always deep and meaningful. We've been talking back and forth for a number of years and always incredible insight. And your pathway towards innovation to somebody to explore with you is, I think, is groundbreaking.
Yeah, my pathway is the product of 50 years of research, not by me, by somebody else.
Yeah.
But in my personal experience, and decades of using it to come up with, that's a whole nother workshop.
Yeah. Anything else you want to leave us with?
No, I think let's stop screen sharing and just say hello again.
Yeah.
No, I'm just really excited about this subject matter. I really am. I think that, again, what I've done at least in the last 25 years of my practice is a cooperative process. We've really had some stunning results.
Mhm.
And, when I was a young architect, you get at your desk, they give you a list of rooms and a budget, and you're supposed to design a building, but completely absent of the human factors involved,
Yeah.
Now, and I was just dissatisfied with that. And I went for a search how to fix that. And this creative design process, bringing everybody into a collaboration and dealing with all the stakeholders and all the purposes and objectives of an enterprise, it's been just highly successful and really a lot of fun to do besides.
Cool. Cool. Great. Good conversation today, Richard. I will put the links to for them to get back with you on that and your connection information, and we'll see you down the road.
Great, Tom. Always great to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye.